All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to JDD. Wrong one. I just did my 5 takeaways, so I just recorded that earlier today. My bad. Welcome back to One Soccer. I'm your host for today, Josh Deming. I'm joined by Alex Gonge-Rizik, and we are here for the morning after stream. And we have our sponsors, tonybet. Welcome to the stream. Hopefully, you guys are doing well today. We are here to talk about the second leg in the Concacaf Nations League, where Canada won 3-0 to advance to the semifinals and the 2025 Gold Cup. And we didn't blow it this time around. There's probably some tough memories, Alex, from the last edition of this competition where we had a comfortable lead at home against Jamaica and we threw it away. So I'll just throw it over to you right away. How you doing this morning, your morning over on the West Coast? And what did you think? Just give me some initial thoughts on the game last night.
Yeah, it was, so far good morning here. It's been a bit of a weird 24 hours here. We had a thing called a bomb cyclone, whatever the heck that is, where it was like some sort of wind event not too far off a tornado. So I was really worried there because there were some warnings of potentially losing power. That since I was on social for this game, that in the second half I'd lose connection and I'd be like, well, not only am I missing the game, I'm missing some valuable clips like the Schaffelberg goal on social. Would have been a real shame to lose that, but the weather held up, my power held up, and no wind there, just a bit of rain today. So and then the game itself was pretty good. Canada dominated, and they should. This is a good step towards them becoming, becoming one step closer to if they want to become kings of CONCACAF. They're a little closer now than they were last week.
I've had that debate on several channels. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. What would it take for Canada to be considered the current, and I mean current, kings of CONCACAF? Because I don't think Canada can be in the conversation of all-time kings of CONCACAF because they just don't have the history. That's my opinion, but I definitely think current kings of CONCACAF can be up for debate. And I went on, I talked with a few Mexican fans and was on a few different YouTube channels talking with them, same with Americans. And they were honestly pretty nice in terms of saying, I respect what Canada has done. I think that they are in a great place right now. I think you can maybe give them the current kings of CONCACAF, but the only thing that would solidify it is that they need a trophy. And it needs to be in a best on best, which Gold Cups over the years have proven not to really be that case. And that's part of why Mexico and some of the fans I've talked to said, well, I mean, yeah, we've won, a recent Gold Cup, but I mean, we had probably like an A- team. Canada, United States had like a B, C team. So it's kind of hard, but when it comes to Nations League, it's always best on best. So Canada have a phenomenal opportunity in March to be able to do it. And Alex, I don't know if it's unfortunately or not, but they have to go through the other top 2 teams.
Well, I was going to say, I think this is literally perfect, and this might have to be a topic we talk about. Who are the kings of CONCACAF? Right now it's the U.S. They've won, they've dominated Nations League. They've done well in Gold Cups. And then you could argue Mexico, right? They won the 23 Gold Cup. They're still, yes, they're a shadow of themselves, but they showed yesterday at least. They still got some aura about them where even 2-0 down, they can pound you 4-0 and be like, oh, yeah, that's Mexico that we maybe haven't seen a lot of. The fact that you play Mexico in a semifinal, you win that. You probably get the U.S. in the final, although for whatever reason for the U.S., Panama seems to have been their biggest bogey team over the last few years. So not a full guarantee. It's perfect. I think they win Nations League now. They're kings of CONCACAF heading into 2026. I think this is really the chance to cement that with this how this drop worked out for them.
Yeah, let us know in the comments, guys. Just put yes or no. If Canada defeat Mexico in the semifinals and then hypothetically the United States in the final, are they the current kings of CONCACAF? I think they are. And I think out of all the teams, Alex, Mexico with their new manager coming in and a few players, bit of a changing the guard, I think they feel better. I just don't think they have the depth and just the overall talent the same way that Canada and the United States do, although they're still a very good team and they do have good players, but I think they will admit that. The United States has a great pool. I just don't think they've been able to fully put it together. They do have Poch now, so I do feel like they're trending the right way. We obviously feel great. We felt great ever since Jesse Marsch has come in. We've been playing some good football, starting to see Jesse's identity really take form within this team. And we've been winning, and we've been creating chances, and our best players are really stepping up. And other players are as well, and we'll get to that, especially in these 2 legs without an Alphonso Davies or a Derek Cornelius. Tejan's still returning from injury. So I do feel like all 3 teams do feel pretty good about themselves. But I mean, I don't know. As a Canadian right now, I feel really good.
Yeah, well, I think, look, let's put out what we know. I think Canada is the most informed team. I think that's no doubt. They had the best CONCACAF showing at the Copa America, right? They didn't play a single CONCACAF team, and they still made it all the way to the third place game, where they probably should have won that third place game if not for some, falling asleep at the wrong times. They've went out and beat the U.S. in the U.S. They drew Mexico in a game where Mexico, despite it being friendly, had no intention of playing because they didn't want Canada to, run over them with the press, etc. Canada beat Panama as well at home. They've done the business now. Like, I think Canada is the most informed team, box one. In terms of talent, it definitely feels like Canada's, improved a lot. I mean, the edge Canada will always have is that Davies and David, you put them up against anyone in CONCACAF. You could argue based on form that, other than Pulisic and, maybe some 2 or 3 other names, like David and Davies are right there up in the top 3, top 4 in terms of players right now, in terms of form, right? In terms of the top player in CONCACAF. Then you look at that depth, right? All of a sudden, when we're having these debates ahead of the 2023 Nations League final, there wasn't a Bombito for Canada. What a player he's become for Canada. There wasn't Derek Cornelius the same way he is. They've, in goal. Remember that after thing, Milan Borjan was in goal for that last Nations League final. And you now look at, it's St. Clair and Crepeau. Like, you just look across the board, this Canadian team's got better depth too. So I think there's a lot of reasons why they can be confident, but it's not going to be easy. The U.S., very talented, like you mentioned. Mauricio Pochettino's got them already humming a bit, although defensively they are a bit rough. And Mexico, well, for what I mentioned earlier, there's Mexico. There's still a certain aura, although I think they realize this talent pool isn't as good, and it's going to lead to some scrappy games. But hey, knockout football, you can get away with that.
Absolutely, and I want to bring up my tweet if I can find it. Because you mentioned Milan Borjan. I don't know where it is, but I put a tweet up just kind of talking about because he's playing really well over in Saudi, and he stopped Ronaldo, I think 3 times, and he had a really good. He's been having great games pretty much every game. He gets peppered with shots, and he's doing really well. But I highlighted one of his games that impressed me over there, and the number one thing that I got in the replies said, "Josh, stop talking about Borjan, man. Move on. Like, you don't need to talk about his stories." And also asked how many juggles did he have that game. So yeah, in the last Nations League quarterfinals that we lost in, we were winning a couple of juggles from Borjan, and then turned around and anyways. But yes, Alex, you made all great points there.
I'll say Kyle Laren's juggling yesterday didn't get him into trouble. No, that was pretty funny when he tried to sombrero the guy after the whistle, and then they got into a big pushing match about it.
Yeah, I saw. That did ring, but I didn't think that there was anything.
Well, it was after a whistle, right? It wasn't in the game, which is probably the big egregious thing about what Borjan did.
I don't know what it is with Canada in quarterfinals and juggling, but no, I had the same thoughts, but I didn't have the same nervousness, considering that Suriname just didn't show anything this match. So, Alex, I'm gonna pull up like we usually do. Our tweets, although you're kind of a blue sky guy now, Alex. So I don't know if you.
There's a lot of rain here, man. Yeah. I like the blue sky. No, I still got some for you on there. Don't worry.
Okay, I'll pop over to yours in a sec, see how they vary from mine. But these are just kind of like some takeaways I had from the match. I thought it was a dominant and professional performance. I didn't really think Suriname showed too much. There was a little spell there at the beginning of the second half, but it did not last very long. Canada didn't let it carry on the way they did in the first leg, and they really just saw this thing out with style. Alex, and I want to talk about the second point a lot. I mean, Bombito was incredible. I don't know how many times I can keep saying that. His speed, his positioning, his footballing IQ. He can defend, but he can also attack. I mean, look at that assist that he had. Beautiful ball to allow Jacob Schaffelberg to run into it. He scored a goal, would have been his first Canada goal, didn't count. So right now, Bombito is just, he's doing it on both ends. I don't need to tell anyone that. Anyone with eyes can see how well he's doing. I thought the 2 fullbacks throughout the game really impressed me, Johnston and Larea, and especially Richie. And I want to highlight him, Alex, before I move on to the third point. I want to get your thoughts too. We had a bit of a debate with a player like Alphonso Davies. You just talked about the best players in CONCACAF. Davies is, he's clearly up there, but he was missing from these 2 legs. You needed a player to step up. We were debating whether it was going to be Atakubi or Larea. I really thought it was going to be Larea. I was almost 100% positive. I think you were too, although you would have maybe liked to see Atakubi get a shout. But this is what Richie can do. We've seen him play at right mid, right back, now left back under Jesse Marsh. And I thought, his combination play with Schaffelberg was awesome. I thought the thing that impressed me the most was just his ability to draw a foul. there were so many times that anytime Suriname and a couple players were closing him down, if they're passing out his back or if he's under a little pressure, Richie can just draw a foul like that and just reset the game and allow Canada to have possession back. He's got that, that little CONCACAF to him as well. He can get under the opposing player's skin. I don't know. I really like both fullbacks' performances over, and I really wanted to highlight Richie. What were your thoughts on him?
I think Larea, if Schaffelberg didn't get a brace, I think Larea is the shoo-in for man of the match. He was incredible yesterday. Really just dominated that left flank in every way. Like ball progression, he was moving the ball up the field, making sure Schaffelberg got touches. He was dribbling. Like every time he got the ball, it was like head up drive. Suriname were struggling to press him, to slow him down, hence all the fouls. Defensively too, there was like 3 or 4 interventions Richie Larea had that could have very well been dangerous Suriname chances. And I just want to say overall, like we talk a lot about, okay, I've seen this, like Suriname's 136 in the world. Maybe we should, park the brakes a little. Look, Suriname, anyone who's watched this team knows that 136 in the world is a big disservice to how good they actually are. And I think it's also a big disservice to how good Canada was defensively across these 2 legs, where there were a lot of times where, trust me, if this was maybe the Canada of 2 years ago, a year ago, even with how much this defense has changed, where Suriname could have exposed them and gotten dangerous chances and gotten dangerous goals, breakaways. Yet now with how this backline is built, Bombito, but Larea deserves a shout for, because he cleaned up at least, I think it was maybe 3 or 4 potential dangerous balls in behind. Like this Canadian defense is really grown a lot. And Larea is now going to make some tough questions, because what do you do of when you got Davies and Johnston? Where does Larea fit? And I think that's a good thing, because you look at how Larea steps up for these big games. You kind of wonder, especially against Mexico, you kind of want him on the pitch. And the question is where? I mean, I know there's a question here of maybe does it push Davies up the field? Maybe, but then you drop Schaffelberg. And that's the beauty of what Jesse Marsh has got right now, where you're looking at guys where it's like, there's now starting to be 14, 15, 16 guys you want on the field, and you can only put 11, and it's going to make for some fun lineup decisions.
And I'm going to take, because there's 2 excellent questions here that I'm going to combine together, and then I'm going to ask you, Alex, and I'll answer it myself as well. The first one was from Oliver here, who says, I was really impressed with Larea, which yeah, we were talking about that at left back. Do you guys think that there's a chance this could offer the freedom for Marsh to put Davies at left mid? And then that kind of goes into this question here from Kilo that says, I still see some Canadian national team fans saying that Schaff should come off the bench. Schaffelberg is a very energetic player. He does thrive off the bench. He's done that over the years. But in Copa America and, in recent performances as well, I think he proved that he is a starter. And Kilo kind of explains that here, saying that he has 4 goals in his last 7 matches. No winger has remotely come close to that. He's an absolute starter. So, Alex, my question is, when everyone's healthy, would you start Schaff at left mid, Davies left back, Richie on the bench, or would you try? Plus, I think Davies is also is our left back now. I don't really want to see him push up the pitch. That's my opinion. Or would you like to maybe see Davies tested a little bit at left mid, allow Schaffelberg to be that engine coming off the bench to go against tired legs in like the 60th minute, and then start Richie at left back? For me, I'll say just right away, I think Schaff's a starter now. I think Davies should stay at left back, and I think Richie, unfortunately, is the man to be left off. But knowing that if there is injuries and an opportunity for him to come off the bench, or if the game's getting a little choppy at halftime, he's a great player to bring on. Which one would you do?
Yeah, I think Davies, you start left back. Let's keep it simple. Davies, I like what he brings there. There's just a certain stability. We talk about the back line changing. Davies becoming a key part of the back line has helped a lot. Then with Schaffelberg at left mid, you got to ride the hot hand, right? I guess there's always a question of how long does this last? But hey, we've been saying that for 7, 8, 9, 12 months now with Schaffelberg. I guess you can start with Trinidad. He scored, and you're like, okay, you're intrigued, and then he went out and scored at Copa America, and you're like, okay, I'm really intrigued. And now he's just, since the friendlies, he's just been on fire. So yeah, I think in this case, Larea, what I see from is either he falls to the bench, and that's not a bad thing, because if you throw him on at 45, 60, he's going to give you an absolute shift. And what's nice is you can bring him off the bench at left mid, right back, left back, even center back. Don't forget, he's played there a bit for TFC, and I think that's a very valuable asset. And what I will say, you could see Larea and Johnston compete for minutes, because I think Johnson has been quite good for Jesse Marsh, but I still haven't seen the Johnson I see for Celtic yet, in the sense that I think part of it's tactical. We don't see Johnston go forward enough, and I think in this camp I would have liked to see a little more of that. So I do wonder if Larea could genuinely push Johnson, and that ends up being like a 50-50 battle that could go either way heading into to March. So I'd say keep an eye on that.
It's wild. We had a comment here that says, hot take, if Davies did play Larea, would have played right wing instead of Ahmed. Do you agree with that take?
I don't think so. I think Ahmed, again, there's a reason why he's made that place his own, and part of it is just, well, it's good performances, right? He was great in September. He's had some good performances since, but it's the flexibility, the tactical flexibility. Having Ahmed on the wing allows you to both play David as a 10, and it also makes up for the fact that you might not have a third midfielder, because Ahmed is your third midfielder. So I think there's a certain positional versatility that Ahmed brings that, is giving him an extra edge in that fight, let's just say.
And Gord says, I disagree. I still think we would have seen Ahmed play on the right-hand side, and I agree with that as well. Wouldn't mind seeing Larea at left back and Davies at left mid. So there's a bit of a split.
Try it out, right? I guess that's why, it would have been nice to have Davies in this camp, because you could have tried that out. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, I don't think we're going to see it in Nations League, right? If you're playing Mexico in the US, hypothetically, right? If to go win a trophy, you're going to want Davies to play 180 minutes at left back in those games, and for good reason, especially like, Davies is going to have his hand full, say if they do end up playing the US with what they can do out wide. And I think you want that back there, and especially you're going to need your entire back line with how Pulisic is playing right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, when we do, I got to respect what Christian's doing as well, because we talk about the top three in CONCACAF. Davies, David are locks, but I mean, Pulisic's in there as well. He's been in there for a while, but his form has kind of come and gone. But right now in Italy, I mean, the man's on fire, and you have to respect that. And what he's doing for his country as well is quite impressive. Definitely one that we'll have to keep an eye on. But we're going to transition now into my third takeaway, which was the midfield was impressive. Same with JD and Laren up top. And I'm going to tie it into this comment here from DD that says having depth is a blessing. So Alex, the midfield impressed me once again. Chouanier got the nod over Kone, and then Laren came back into the lineup over Tanny. Kind of seems like a missed opportunity, unfortunately, for Tanny. We talked a little bit, Alex, about how the press just wasn't quite up to Marsh's standards in that first leg. I think it was quite obvious that Laren was going to come back into the starting 11. Tanny also had a big opportunity to score. Not much more he could have really done to score, but he hits two posts. Laren had a great opportunity to score as well. He hit a post, but he did pick up a wonderful assist. I thought the press was a lot better today. Laren and David, I thought, looked really good. JD is just JD. So talk to me a little bit about the depth and what it's like having a player like Tanny come in. And I know he didn't completely capitalize on his opportunity, but he pushed Laren to know that, hey, my spot isn't guaranteed. I need to come in. I need to have a big game. And same with Akone, who was left off for Chouanier, who came in and had a good game as well.
Yeah, let's start with Tanny Oluwase. I like he's in a good spot where, you can get 15, 30 from him off the bench. And, now if you do need him to start for 45, 60, he was solid in Suriname. Jesse Marsh said it, that he liked his performance. I think it's something where had he scored, I think, of course, he'd look a little more favorably on the performance. That's the life of a striker. You can play awfully as a striker. You score a hat trick, everyone's going to forget how awful you played. The beauty of a position where you're paid to score the goals. So I think I like the way Oluwase's pushed, but what I find interesting is that I think you saw the defensive value of a Laren and a Chouanier, because a fun stat for you, Josh, under Jesse Marsh, Canada has averaged around 16, 17 final third recoveries a game, right? So like recovering the ball in the final third through their press, pretty good. It's been good. That dropped to around 14 in leg 1, I think it was. They had 21 in leg 2, which was actually their highest they've had in a performance under Jesse Marsh. So in terms of like recovering balls in the final third, this is their best performance yet. And I think Laren helped a lot. He had a very good game, had the assist, probably should have scored with the post. Something he'll think about, I'm sure, for a few weeks. But Chouanier and Eustachio, I talked earlier about guys making discussions tough for Jesse Marsh. Chouanier really is. And the big reason, well, one of them is set pieces. His delivery is, worth noting. But defensively, I think Eustachio Chouanier, from what we've seen, is the best combination Jesse Marsh has tried out defensively in midfield. They're so similar. When Canada has them on the field, their midfielders are able to play right on top of Suriname, which then helps David and Larin play a bit more aggressively. It helps Ahmed and Schaffelberg. Like, just having Chouanier and Eustachio are so key to the press, and the press just looks so much better that it's going to lead to some tough discussions. Because I think Kone should be a starter. He brings you so much on the ball. And I still think Canada on the ball has a lot of work to do. For as good as they've been in the press, good as they've been in direct play, they still struggle a bit when the game slows down and they need some possession. I think that's where you need Kone. But now I think with Chouanier and Eustachio, it's going to lead to some awkward discussions of, do you move Kone to the 10? Does Kone become a super sub? Because it's going to be hard to take Chouanier out if he keeps playing like this defensively.
And yeah, there's a ripple effect. If you push Kone to the 10, it almost moves David's position a little bit because he kind of plays as that 10. It would probably sacrifice Kyle Larin as well. And that just leads back to the depth, Alex. I mean, Larea, Chouanier, like whatever this best 11 is going to look like come March, there's some big players that have done really well to contribute to this team that are going to be left off. And I don't really know what the answer is. I don't know, because like I like to imagine Chouanier's on the pitch with Kone, but I like what David does at the 10, playing off of a natural number 9. I like when Kyle Larin's in. We've given him heat over the years as well, but I'm starting to really kind of feel comfortable and like what I see when those two play together. The opponent will obviously be a big impact on that, but I mean, as said here, it's kind of great to have these problems, man. Like,
well, I think what I'd like to see from Jesse Marsh, I will say, like, this maybe could be the next step. Now that he's kind of started to build up this depth, and now he knows, like, if I go Eustachio Chouanier in the midfield, I can press a bit more. Whereas maybe if I have Kone, I press a bit less. He knows what Larin and David brings. He knows what David on his own can bring. He knows what Ahmed brings. Buchanan, Larea, Davies. I'd like to start seeing him tweak to matchups too, because maybe there is a game where they need more press and they go Eustachio Chouanier and leave Kone off. But maybe there's a game where the opponent, they don't like to play out the back, and then Canada's going to have 70% possession. Maybe that's where you want Kone. I would like to see Marsh adjust a bit more, maybe in terms of matchups, just now that he has that flexibility where when it comes down to that, use that to your advantage. Use those little differences you have between certain profiles. Maybe in a game you want Larea throwing himself forward with overlaps from right back, and you leave a Johnson out. But then in another game you need a little more control on the ball, in the build up. Then you leave a Johnson in. You can kind of do little things that use that flexibility to your advantage.
And here's a great example, Alex. If we ever head to Central America, there's no reason why Richie Larea shouldn't start every one of those matches.
I think now he's become indispensable on away games. Like an away game, you need Richie Larea.
I agree, man. I 100% agree. It's why I had no doubt that Richie was going to start in Suriname, but I still kind of had the feeling he was going to start both of those matches. But yeah, it's a huge reason for it. He's made for CONCACAF, and especially in those certain type of matches. But Alex, we're going to roll over to your 5 takeaways now. My last one was Schaffelberg was my man of the match, mainly because of the brace. We'll touch on him in a bit, and then job's done. We've qualified for the semifinals. We've qualified for Gold Cup, and we'll move over to yours. And I think you had some similar ones, but we'll kind of pick up for the Schaffelberg shout here. You said the big win, very solid overall performance, but then you had Schaffelberg, Larea, both player of the matches. We already touched on Larea, so we'll move along to Jacob Schaffelberg. You and I just did a transfers episode, so keep an eye out for that. It'll probably release in the next few days, but we touched on Jacob Schaffelberg. It's great to see him continue finding goals for Canada. I mean, we saw him do it off the bench a little bit. We saw him do it at Copa America. He returned to Nashville, didn't quite do it, but then he came back to Canada. I mean, where he's happy, smiling, scoring goals. I'd like to see him do that a little bit more at the club level, but at least for Canada, when this player starts, not only just coming off the bench and making an impact, but he can do a job right from the beginning. I like the chemistry he was building there with Richie Larea. I've sometimes had question marks about Richie playing left back and whether, he can, that's his bet, not that he can do it, but that's his best position, whether it's right back or right mid. But I like what I saw from those two. And I guess, where does Schaffelberg go for here? Is he a lock? We were talking about it a little bit earlier. Is there even a question? Like he is the starter. He's our starting left mid no matter what. I mean, I know Liam Miller is out right now and he was pushing, but at the end of the day, it just seems like this is Schaffelberg's position to lose.
Yeah, I mean, almost the numbers speak for themselves, right? Where I think under Marsh, there's been 12 goals. David scored 5 of them off the top of my head. Schaffelberg's now, he scored 4 of them, I want to say, right? I guess, yeah, because he scored one in Venezuela, etc. at 9. And I guess the other 3, that leaves Hoylett scored 1. That's who scored, yeah. Who's the other ones? I'm curious to see who I could remember. It's Laren scored 1 against
right?
Panama, and then there's a third, Kone, against Uruguay. So those are your 12 goals scored under Jesse Marsch. Schaffelberg pretty much been, other than David, the top contributor under Marsch. You can't really leave him out. And what I like under Marsch is the way he's kept the simplicity that makes Jacob Schaffelberg so good, right? Like the speed, the head down, just attacking defenders. Like he made the right back's life last night tough. That's what you want from your winger. But what I really like is the way he's added end product into his game. Like there's a few dangerous crosses, the shots. There's something there in terms of just bringing that. And I think most importantly, he's shown that no matter if you start him or if you bring him on in the 60, he doesn't change his game. So I think because of all those reasons, that energy he's brought from the start is huge. Because I think there were some times at Copa America where Canada started games a bit slow, and we talked about, okay, maybe it's important to have a bit of a spark from the start. And I think that Schaffelberg's consistently brought that. Until he has, a run of bad games, it feels like that spot is his. And what's nice is that you can get 45 from him, 60 or 80, and he'll do his thing. And, I think that especially will buy time for Buchanan to get up to full speed. And, Canada's winger depth isn't crazy. So it's not a bad thing at all.
No. So we kind of, in yours, Alex, we had some kind of similar points. So I'm going to skip David. I mean, I don't know. Unless you want to keep touching on David. I mean, we know what he can do. He's I don't know. He's just incredible. I love this new role he has, the freedom, the fact that he is kind of playing as this number 10, and he looks just so comfortable. There's times last night, Alex, I saw him drift straight up where he was beside the left back. He almost looked like the left back for a second. If you just started turning on the game, you're like, what's Jonathan David doing at left back? That's the freedom he has to kind of go into spots where he wants the ball. And he had his hand up. If he was playing at left back, and I think Johnston had the ball, and he was calling for it. Like it was just cracking me up. He's really enjoying his football right now. He's scoring for fun. Club level, Canada, he just does a little bit of everything. He's such an intelligent player. And I believe the quote was Jesse Marsch said it's one of the most intelligent footballers he's ever played.
The most. That's why I'll save words on Jonathan David. Why? I usually don't like to, because I will talk about Jonathan David all day, but I have something coming out later today on Jonathan David playing as the number 10 with some just some examples of why he was so good at it. So I'll save that for that. Keep an eye out for some more Jonathan David analysis in written form for those who like.
Beautiful. Okay, so yeah, keep an eye and on One Soccer, right?
On One Soccer, and there's let's just say I think I clipped over 17 actions that Jonathan David did as a number 10 in this camp. Okay. So there's a lot of visual examples for the visual learners out there.
Beautiful. All right, keep an eye out for that over on the One Soccer X page. Sorry, we'll skip over that. And if you want more JD, just keep an eye on Alex's X as well, or One Soccer's. We touched on the defense, highlighted 3 of the 4. I mean, I'll throw in some love as well for Kamal Miller and Joel Waterman over these legs. Both players coming in. We talked about the depth already. We talked about how Derek Cornelius has become a massive part of this back line alongside Bombito. Without him, 2 players stepped up in both matches. Waterman, I thought, did really well in the first leg, and Kamal Miller, I had a lot of comments on my 5 takeaways. It just said we want to show a little love to Kamal Miller, so I wanted to do that as well, because I mean the man left the pitch bleeding for his country. I mean, being a warrior, you got to love it. And you got to. We've talked about a couple of times that the center back position is a little light, and we had question marks about what will happen when a Cornelius or Bombito is not there. So we saw 2 CF Montreal players, one former CF Montreal player in Kamal Miller. And
so Waterman signed that new deal this morning. He's not going anywhere.
He's not going anywhere. He's going all over the place. We saw 2 players step up, is my point. What did you like about Kamal Miller's performance last night, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give full credit to Kamal Miller in terms of he was an absolute warrior last night, and I think that deserves full praise. He was throwing his body in tackles, throwing his bodies into 50-50s, making slide tackles, being Kamal Miller, but also bringing that aggression that Jesse Marsch has wanted and felt that maybe he was lacking, and why he went with the Cornelius Bombito right away. Because there was a lot of talk about it on the broadcast, and it's fair, right? Like Miller played every minute at a World Cup. He at one point, and for John Herdman had played most of, from 2021 to 2023. Kamal Miller was almost like an indisputable starter if he was healthy. So for him to lose that spot, for him to respond the way he did, look at the blood and everything. That's encouraging. I think you feel confident about what he can bring. It's going to be interesting to see what the hierarchy is, because I still think between the two games, Waterman's calmness in possession was missed a little. Like Kamal Miller, the one wrinkle I was going to say from his game yesterday, he kept hoofing everything. I don't know if it was just because he was excited or it was just like, it's not. He was struggling to hold on to the ball a bit, which was weird because that's one thing Kamal Miller is really good at, and I thought that was a bit strange. And I think Waterman and Legwand did such a great job of slowing down the game when he needed to, keeping the ball. I think because of that, I think Waterman might have the slight edge in that number 3 battle. But it is good to know that Kamal Miller is still in the mix, because we were wondering, the fact that we hadn't seen any Miller at all. Where does he stand? I think this game shows that he still can be a very valuable part of the rotation. Yeah,
because we haven't seen him, I was very confident that Waterman was going to start that first match. I was right, but Miller came in and did a job, so it shows that Jesse can trust the depth that we have. I do agree with you, Alex, in terms of Joel Waterman just looking a little bit more of the part. You said calmness. I did like that relationship, going somewhere like Suriname and playing well with Bombito. But we kind of know what Kamal can do, and you saw it right here with this tweet. Anything for my country. It can be a little cagey at times, but you can usually rely on Kamal to put in a shift, and these pictures show that as well. Alex, that was basically all of your takeaways with the defense, the Chouanier, Eustakio midfield we talked about. But the last one, Jamie Knight-Labelle coming on for his cameo. You and I had a little debate of whether we would see him this window. I said probably not, but if we did see him, so I was wrong. But like I said, if we were to see him, it would probably be late in the match, and if we were dominating, which is what we saw. But I did say right away, I didn't think we were going to see him. I was leaning more towards not seeing him, but if the scenario called for it, which was kind of that, you seemed pretty confident that he was going to start no matter what, and so you were right, Alex. You got me there, and with Dane Sinclair getting the starts as well. What do you make of his short cameo and the fact that we have now he's cap tied? The rules are still sometimes fuzzy. Provisionally cap tied. Okay, so is this one of the things where he needs to make 2 more appearances or to really get him, or three more appearances? But he is locked up until November 19th, 2027. It's 3 years. Okay. So he's no Wales in the 2026 World Cup. We'll just put that out there. He's Canada's got him for the next 3. So I'm excited because look, I'll be honest, I haven't seen much of Knight-Labelle this year with Crew Alexandra. It is tough sometimes to find the League 2, games just because they're played at 5 a.m. on Saturdays on the West Coast and etc. But I'd seen him at Bristol. I'd liked what I'd seen, and now I'm definitely gonna I think someone was saying there's a Crew play on a Monday next week, so I'm definitely gonna watch Knight-Labelle next week, because if it's anything like this, I'm intrigued. You never really expect much, right, with a 19-year-old center back coming on the field, 3-0 game, but he looked calm on the ball. Spread it around well, made a couple big tackles right away, right? I like the confidence. I like the spark. So Jamie Knight-Labelle, it's a small moment, but congrats for getting your debut. And now it gets you a bit excited of, okay, he's on this loan in League 2. He's progressing. Jesse Marsh likes him. Hopefully it's only a matter of time before Bristol call him up and get him into that first team full time. And that'll be good news for Canada down the road in their center back depth. Rocking the number 19 as well. takes on Davies' number, but you gotta respect. But yeah, it is nice, especially with a position, in my opinion, of need for Canada, and the fact that because he's also eligible for England, but it's Wales that's gonna be a bit of a threat to us as well. So it's kind of nice getting that provisional cap done, and that way he's not going anywhere for at least 3 years right now, and hopefully not going anywhere at all, because he can progress as a player and be someone that can get a few caps over these next few years, especially at a tournament like maybe Gold Cup. We give this youngster a chance. So yeah, that was pretty much the majority of our takeaways that we had there, Alex. So if you guys have any comments for us to go over in the chat, throw it in. We'll keep an eye on, as well, on some of the other tweets from last night. I'm just going to try to find a few as well. But We had a comment here from Gore that said, what do y'all think of Laren's presence last night? I only saw the highlights, so I couldn't contribute much to the chat. Laren's pass to Schaff was terrific. I feel Laren's presence is critical. So we kind of touched on it, Alex, but we can go back to Kyle Laren because I want to tie it into the fact that we have depth now. You and I just talked about if Choinière is going to start, it has to be Laren for me, the one that would be sacrificed. If we ever kind of move to this 3-man midfield with a Choinière, Kone, and Eustachio, or even like a Seeger in there, and you also have you have him. We saw him once again.
He looked good yesterday, even though right back. I mean,
right back.
I'd love to see him in the 6 one of these days. I beg.
One of these days. Unfortunately, it's I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I had a feeling maybe this was going to be the game that we saw him maybe come on, but just because we were up by a bit. But we did see him come on. It was at the right back position. But if we ever going to turn to that, it would mean that David becomes, the true number 10 or number 9, and Kone becomes the 10, and that sacrifices Laren. So I have been, hard on Laren over the past little bit, but I do really think that, he has an important role under with Jesse Marsh and this team. The chemistry with Jonathan David improves, I think, just between the 2 games. I know one was away, one was home, so you expect Canada to play a little better at home, but I feel a little bit more uncomfortable every time I keep watching Laren and David together. So what do you make of his presence, Alex, and especially with the press? And maybe you could talk to our viewers here a little bit. That was, I think, your biggest critique about that first leg was the press just didn't look up to what Jesse Marsh wants, and that just to me naturally seemed that, all right, well, Tanny's going to come out, Laren's going to go in, and you lead, you press from the front. David and Laren are 2 big parts of that. So how big was Laren's presence felt last night?
Yeah, I think yesterday, if you get what you got from Laren going forward, that's going to definitely help his case for more starts, because I think that was about as good of a performance as you could have got, minus him hitting the post. Like, I think he puts that goal in. It's perfect, right? Goal and assist, helps the build up, created a couple chances and helped the press. Because, I think the big thing is he just seems to be constantly in the right position with the press. Like, that's the hard thing with the press, is that it's not an all-out sprint. Like, you can be mistaken that press is just like, oh, see ball, chase ball, run after ball. No, the ball is about little things, about, where's my teammate? Where's my other teammate? Where's the reference? What's the trigger, right? Like, for example, you're not going to trigger a press on the other team's best ball-playing defender. Maybe usually teams scout and realize, okay, we really think this right back's weak in possession. We're going to trigger it when that goes to the right back. In this case, he wasn't. He was very good. I really like that Suriname right back. I just want to say Van Helderen, heck of a player. And then they also had Haps on the left. Like, it was more their center backs you wanted to trigger. And Laren seemed to get all those little things. Like, he just constantly knows when to be in the right movement, the right area. And I think that's key. And that's something to watch. And I think maybe that's why we haven't seen a David leading the line with a Kone at the 10, is that I guess Marsh will want to see more from Kone defensively in that position. And I think because Laren brings so much of that, it's making him hard to displace. And I think what's nice is that after the Copa America, where Laren really did struggle for offense, he's found his feet, right? Like, against the US, he missed some big chances, but at least he got big chances. And then Mexico, same thing, right? He had that header that was robbed. And then against Panama, he scored, right? It was huge. He got that monkey off his back. First leg didn't really play because of an injury. Second leg, he hit the post again, a big chance. Like, he's getting Laren chances again. And that was also the big worry that we had earlier in the year, was all he's doing is defending. Where's the rest? Because at the end of the day, he's a striker. So I do like that recently. He's found a bit of balance between the defending he was doing early, but he's starting a bit to get in those dangerous positions.
I agree. So let's move on to a few questions here, are just our statements. Laren was awesome, fought for a lot of balls. He was the main outlet pass each time for Dane St. Clair. Besides Davies, who else is Club World Cup tied and can't play Gold Cup? Is that a thing?
Well, no. Well, yeah, no? But it's just like, if they're at the Club World Cup, we'll have to see, right? Because the teams qualified, for example, Porto's there, so yeah. Stefan Eustachio could be one of the guys who's just he won't be available.
David could join a team.
David could join a team. That's one of those that we'll have to keep an eye out for. What else do we have here? Because Real Madrid's one of the teams. So if Davies or David ends up there, Bayern's one of the teams. PSG is one of the teams at Club World Cup. Inter Milan, so Tejan Buchanan is another one who will be unavailable. And yeah, and then we'll maybe if there's a Canadian that ends up at Seattle or Miami, but unlikely on that regard, I guess.
I feel like it's. I mean, even if there wasn't a Club World Cup, I don't know what type of Canada team we would see anyways, especially because the rumors of this expanded Gold Cup with, top tier countries coming in to fill up the tournament is not going through. I think I saw something yesterday, Alex, that it does look like there's going to be one guest nation again. And I think Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Colombia, and Uruguay were the 4 I saw. So, I mean, if you get one of those South American teams, that could be kind of fun. But at the same time, if you really want to see Canada win a trophy, it's going to be in March with the Nations League. Not that they have no chance at the Gold Cup, but if I'm a betting man, before there's even this Club World Cup, I don't think they would have sent an A squad regardless. And now that there's this Club World Cup, there's probably even less of a chance, especially with this 2025 Gold Cup maybe not going exactly as planned.
Here's what I'll throw out for you. I think this would be the ideal start to 2025 because we'll see how the rest of the year goes. March, go out and win the trophy. You get that trophy, you lift it, you go best on best, you show that this last few months weren't a fluke. Jesse Marsh's got this team humming. You win that trophy, boom, like huge lift. Like Davies gets to lift the trophy's captain. All these guys who've been here for a while now get to taste that silverware. Great. Step 1. Step 2, in June, keep an eye out on that June window is all I'll say for Canadian potential friendlies. Like in the sense that like the grass at BC Place is supposed to go down, in early 2025. In June, finally, there's going to be teams free around the world because, there's, some of the World Cup qualifiers are going to take a pause, etc. I've heard rumblings, let's just say, that there could be some friendlies in June. So hopefully some of them are big teams. You go get big friendlies against June, and then that's the last you see of the big guns. You either go to your Club World Cups, you go take the summer off, you go get your transfers, yada, yada, yada. And then because you've won the Gold Cup, you won the Nations League, you go to the Gold Cup and you really bring like a squad of youngsters, of guys that you really want to see. Like I saw a shout earlier for Shola Jimo. If Shola Jimo is balling out for York, give him a look at the Gold Cup. Give anyone else in the CPL who's balling out a look. Any of the young MLS guys, maybe someone we haven't heard of is balling out that, I don't know, take a pick. Maybe an Alessandro Biello gets in at Montreal and he's balling out. A Jeevan Badwal's balling out for the Whitecaps in limited minutes. Give all those guys looks. Jamie Knight-Labelle, I love the shout. Luke DeFougerol. A lot of these young guys in Europe as well. You can't forget. Maybe you give a Gregoire Swiderski a look. And I think that's a pretty good 4 to 5 month plan for the CanMNT, is it not, Josh?
Yeah, no, I agree. Now, what I would like to add to that, Alex, is I agree with you 100%. March, it will be best on best. Nations League, for some reason, I think it's just because guys want the summer
windows
off.
Too, right?
It's 2 games. You get 2 games to win a trophy instead of...
the Gold Cup will never be taken seriously by clubs, and I think this is sad because I think it's a big term. I'm just saying by clubs and players if it's every 2 years, because they'll just be like, oh, well, then maybe in 2 years we'll look at it, and then in 2 years we'll look at it. If it's every 4 years, it's different. It's the reason why AFCON doesn't get disrespected, even if it's in weird months. It's the reason why Asian Cup doesn't get disrespected. Gold Cup, the problem is it's every 2 years. Yeah,
and well, if you make it every 4 years, you could turn that second edition into the Copa America, or if they permanently allow CONCACAF teams to play to make it a 16-team tournament. I mean, you saw it was best on best in Copa America. It was an incredible run. It was my favorite time ever covering this national team, even over the World Cup, but probably because we went on a good run. But yeah, so and what I was going to say though, Alex, is I agree with you. Nations League will be taken very seriously. It's best on best. It's a great opportunity for Canada to win. I can almost guarantee you, no matter what, that they're not going to take it seriously. They're just not going to have their best players. But what I would like to add to that is I want them to stay away from those late 30-year-old players. Like if you're sending a B team, I'd rather see younger players that can be used in the future than bringing in
call up 2 or 3 leaders. Like there's room for like maybe a 1 or 2 guys in their 30s to bring around for experience, right? Like an Osorio was never a bad guy to have around that group, a Hoylett. But yes, I get your point that you want to bring as many new faces to look at it as possible.
I think it was like, I guess in the last edition when like the Cavallini type players, like the players that you almost wanted to push out because they weren't playing very well and they were older, they wanted to see. But yeah, and Osorio, like you'll need a couple
anyone
leaders.
who can still be there in 2026, basically. Like if you're bringing in vets, bring guys that will be there in 2026. And yeah, because I think it's true. You don't want to complete, like, you don't want 23 kids going out there and getting battered at the Gold Cup. You want some guy, even like Chouaniers, Ahmeds, you want some of those guys around as well. So it is a good point.
And I don't think that the Canadian team will be bad. I mean, like even like the B or C team in Gold Cup can compete. Yeah,
as well.
Like if we build and a lot of the guys who get opportunities at Gold Cups are straight MLS players. And Alex, if you and I we can do it just very quickly right off the top of our head.
In Suriname, they started 5 MLS players in leg 1 and had 2-3 others off the bench. Like MLS guys, it's still Tanny, it's still Russell Rowe, it's still lots of guys.
Let's do it quickly right here, Alex. Like 4-4-2. So you have Dane and net, you have Larea, Waterman, Miller, Atakubi. There's your back 4. You have Ahmed. We'll come back with Saliba. I'll take Seager plus throw him in for fun. Unless you could think of another. I guess you could do Saliba. I'm trying to think of the 6. Piet, I guess.
I don't know. Let's go Saliba Seager. Because I'd say basically, if you cut out, in this case, cut out all the big guys, right? Like David Davies, like, Eustachio, Bombito, Cornelius, anyone who's had, Laren, anyone who will have big club loads this year. So Seager, you can throw into that mix.
Seager, Saliba, and then you have Schaffelberg on the left. You have Tanny up front with Russell Rowe. That's a solid team. Like
that's not bad at all, Josh.
No, this team like
still got Kamal Miller too. You still got Crepeau in there. You still got some. You could throw in a youngster like a Defugerol. Who knows? Maybe a Lee Miller will just be coming back from an injury, and maybe you can throw him in that mix. You can throw in some other young. You can throw in a Frifa, right? That's another guy that you could throw in.
Yeah, like it'll be a decent team, and the Canadian team is always a decent team. But if we want to go out there and really feel like when the tournament starts, we're the favorites, we need our top guns. Which the whole point of this is we probably won't get it, but doesn't mean that we're not going to have a team that can compete. The United States will send a very similar team to what we will have, like B type team. But Mexico usually sends a pretty solid team because most of their players play in Mexico, and that is what it is. But all right, let's go through some other comments here, guys. Get some comments. We got about 12-ish minutes left in the stream, and we actually were given another starting 11. So McGill, which is an interesting one.
I don't know if you chance to give a look at him, right?
Do you want to? So you were telling me before in the pregame that KJ mentioned Tom McGill. What do you think? Do you think Tom McGill is someone who can who can push for a spot? And I guess if he was given an opportunity, a Gold Cup would be a really good one to kind of give yourself a shot. But like just to go to a World Cup. But for me, I still think McGill is probably 4. But if I count Owen Goodman, I'd rather someone like him than over McGill right now. So if we count dual nats, I'd probably have McGill 5 on my depth chart.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because if you feel that you're confident in Crepeau and Sinclair, right? Like Crepeau played the 21 Gold Cups. Sinclair played a good chunk of the 2023 Gold Cup. So they've each had their experience being the guy in those sorts of tournaments. Maybe one of them is making a club move, right? Or for example, or maybe, with how MLS is, maybe they're playing big games for their club in MLS. Could be interesting to bring in like a McGill, a Goodman, and a Sirois and just seeing which of the 3 impresses you most and letting that guy run with it, right? Because the thing is with McGill, we just don't know enough about him. Like we just haven't seen him play enough at club level, and now he's 24 playing in League 2. Who knows? Maybe it's something where he just needs this challenge, and then he really impresses us. I'm like, oh, okay, that was a good choice. Or Sirois impresses, and we like it. Or Goodman. I think Goodman's one to watch, right? He's only 20, doing a job in League 2. So I would love to see something like that, and that could be a good shout.
On the books at Crystal Palace as well. So it's quite a player to keep an eye on, I guess. But I guess Tom McGill's on the books at Brighton, but he's been on the books for a bit. All right, we'll move on to this comment here. So he had McGill, he had Seager at right back, Bombito, Knight LaBelle, Defugerol, which I guess we didn't mention Defugerol either. Ahmed, Chouanier, Saliba, Promise David's another one, and Jemison. So that's a fascinating starting 11, man. If you ask me right now, would you take that for the Gold Cup? I would say yes, because you'd cap tie 2 strikers up top. You got a couple youngsters in there. You got Bombito at a Gold Cup. Seager, you'd see.
I'd like to see Bombito get some rest, though. I think
Yeah.
Nice are playing him pretty much any minute he's available, and he's in Europa League. I would like to see Bombito get a rest because he's also played every minute under Jesse Marsh so far. I think the only player to do so. So maybe rest Bombito, but I like some of the shouts there. I mean, Jebison's the one to watch. He needs to find form for Watford, man. That's really would be nice to see him get some goals, get some form, because has a bit of a rough start to the year for him.
Yeah, it's a shame, and I've kind of mentioned that a while. Like, I am excited about Jebison, and I don't want to hide away from that. I would like him to commit. I think it's a great story, but I mean, at the end of the day, if he did commit, he's not near my starting 11. There's players that are playing at a higher level and are playing better than him. And are just fit, and that's the biggest thing. His biggest thing that has kept him away from, at least in my eyes, like being a player that I'm desperate to get in, is because he just hasn't had a consistent run of form. He's injured a lot, which it's not his fault, but like he just isn't able to lock it down. And when he is healthy, it's not like he's put up crazy numbers. I think the most success he's had at club level would be in League One, when he had that run where I think he had like, I don't know.
Was that Burton he was on?
Burton, he had like 9 goals and 17 appearances. Like, it's a good record, but then he was recalled from his loan halfway through the year and then wasn't played whatsoever in the championship. So I think he's got a lot of work to do. He needs to find a way to get into some starting minutes, he needs to find a way to score some goals and stay healthy. So he's definitely one to keep an eye on for. But I mean, honestly, if you're asking me those two strikers right now, I'd rather Promise David get a call. I mean, he's playing at a higher level. He's playing more minutes. He's scoring goals. His ratio right now, and because he hasn't had a ton of minutes, he's come off the bench. He scored some goals. He's got
played
starts.
Like 400 minutes now. So 5 goals, 6 goals.
Like, he's a different profile as well. We're a little biased. We've chatted with him a couple times, so he's a really good guy. He really wants to play for Canada. He's a dual nat. So I mean, out of those two options, he's a player I'd rather get, or at least target, to try to get in first. And Jesse Marsh mentioned he's going to be keeping an eye on, or he's going to Europe and keeping an eye on some players. So maybe Promise David's on the list. Maybe he's not. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, Jefferson's always going to be an interesting case. I'll be excited if he does one day commit, but
I'd like to see that's one of those, right? Like, I think there's a reason why a Marsh has been not hesitant to give a Defugeral a look, to give a Knight Labelle a look, and to give a Seager a look, because Canada's depth at center back and midfield, like we've mentioned, is a bit lighter. And you can even add Saliba in because he's a dual nat. But what's nice with the forwards is between David and Laren and now Tani Oluwase, I guess there's another dual national. You can't forget that. And, and Theo Bair, that there's enough striker options where guys have to be knocking down the door. And I think what's nice is Promise David, he's getting close to that. He's starting to knock down the door. And it's something where if he keeps this up, we're going to have good discussions in March of should he get called up if he keeps scoring like this, right? But for Jebison, he needs to throw himself in that mix. And what's nice with Canada, they don't have to rush, right? If he does start performing, they can call like, hey, we'd love to have you. And if not for now, I'm sure they'll just be keeping an eye on his progress.
And I'm just going to rewind here a little bit back to the other the keeper discussion that we had, because G Money Talk says League 2 is a smidge above CPL. Little shot fired, and then we have a ranking of depth chart, and then so you got Crepeau, Dane St. Clair, Pantemis, Sirwa, Goodman, Schwiderski, and McGill. I would rearrange it a little bit. I mean,
I think put Sirwa ahead of Pantemis, and even right now you could argue heading into 2025, I feel like St. Clair has kind of quickly jumped in front of a Crepeau, right? You feel like you could argue.
I would say, I mean, especially if we're looking at it from Jesse, I would say Dane's, he made a statement this window. I also think that Dane's been right there. It's just when you're comfortable with something and Crepeau hasn't really put in a wrong foot for Canada, it's hard to make that switch. But yeah, I mean, if I'm going off of what I think Jesse is, and I kind of agree, I would go Dane, Crepeau, Sirwa, probably McGill, Pantemis, Goodman, just because he's a dual nat, and then Swiderski's at the bottom because he's so young, but he's definitely, he's got some. Swiderski's got some time still. He is very, very young.
He did get promising player.
He
looked good at the U20s. He looked very good.
He was very. I was chatting with him, and after they got eliminated, he was really, really disappointed. Or actually, well, it wasn't even when he got eliminated. It was after the 2-2 draw against Honduras, where they gave up the 2-0 lead, I believe, and he was super, super annoyed. I don't think there's anything he could have done on either goal, but he's got a really good mentality, a good head on his shoulder. on his shoulders, and he went through a difficult situation with Bordeaux. He landed at Deportivo Alaves, so
hey, keep an eye.
Keep an eye, exactly. But he's a little bit away, but he was also called into a camp when they were in Bordeaux. So Jesse definitely knows about him, but he's very young, so there's time there for sure. But that would probably be my list. 3 years ago, Jefferson would have been called in despite his poor form. That's a good point. Glad we're massively improving on our depth. That's a really good point. Yeah, there was a time where if you wanted to play for Canada and you were half decent, you were called in. That's just how it was. And there's guys who won't. I'm going to kind of move into this point here. Marsh seems to focus on good pressing strikers. It's why Tanny's getting more minutes than others, and probably why Klinovic wasn't considered. Does Promise David press well? So to kind of tie those 2 points together, Klinovic was in great form. I mean, he moved out from Czechia over to the Netherlands. He was scoring goals. He's a dual nat. He's 25. But we chose, we chose to kind of look the other way because we have other strikers that maybe fit Jesse's system more. There's only so many strikers you can call in. And when you play, I think at most in a 23-man squad, you call in 4. You got to find players who are going to get in there not necessarily over a David or Lairn, but a Bear and a Tanny, a Russell Rowe that we mentioned. You have Promised David. I'm sure I'm missing a few others.
Well, I feel like, for Kulenovic, now that we've had some time to reflect, because, I said this on the Northern Football podcast, Jesse Marsh knew of Kulenovic. I think that much was clear, because I know there was some talks of, I know Marsh was being dismissive. And, fair enough. It's a player that's not part of the national team. Why talk about it? But with Kulenovic, you have to think age is the one that played against him, because I think Russell Rowe's 3 years younger. Tanny's 1 year younger. Bears a year, I think the same age as a Kulenovic. Jebison, you can throw into that mix. Promise David are both younger. I think Canada's, I guess, making the bet maybe on younger guys. Yeah, now Kulenovic, if you put him right in the pool, he'd be what, 4th? You could argue, right? Based on his form, 3rd, 4th, genuinely. Yeah. But I guess the bet is that they're hoping in 2-3 years that, the likes of a Promise David, a Jebison, a Russell Rowe end up making good. And there's always young Canadian strikers, ready to poke through at different levels. I know one name we were joking about before the show, but you never know. Woobens Pacius at Nashville. I think the only reason he didn't make his first team debut is because for some reason Nashville are allergic to international spots. They had 3 this year, which is bonkers. They traded away every single one for money. But Schaffelberg became a domestic this year because he got his green card. You have to think Pacius is going to get a look for a team that struggled massively to score goals, because he was lighting it up in next pro to end the year.
He was, and also, Alex, it's crazy to think about, but there's also a guy named Ike Ugbo who is...
I can't forget Ike
Ugbo. Yeah, I was going to say, man, I have forgotten about Ike Ugbo because, unfortunately, I think he upset a lot of Canadians about the Gold Cup situation, which, we don't know the 100% reason as to why he didn't come. I would like to imagine if a major tournament like Copa America, you want to be there no matter what. I get that there's other things, and maybe there was something we didn't see, but he was, he's posting on Instagram, vacationing. It just doesn't. And yeah, anyways, I don't want to get all into that, but it's also part of being a dual national. He is English more than he is Canadian. We didn't even know that he was Canadian until he those reports came out that he spent 4 years here. Doesn't mean that he doesn't feel Canadian. Maybe he does. But I think that's what upset some of fans, was that it just he didn't seem interested. Jesse Marsh did say one thing, I believe, on it, and it's just that he's not ruled out. And on top of that, he
just needs to score. That's it.
Dreadful start.
Well, that's the beauty of the form for Canada, is that you kind of got to go on performance. Yes, you can argue a Bear, but Bear scored in Liga, and he's adapting to his new club. He's getting minutes. Tani Oluwaseyi, it's dried up for him, but he's had a good enough start to the year, and he's proven how useful he can be to Marsh's system. That if you're gonna break in ahead of Bear or Oluwaseyi, got to be scoring. And for Ike Ugbo, he hasn't been scoring. For Daniel Jebison, he hasn't been scoring. But for Kulenovic, he was scoring. We wondered if he would get the call. He doesn't. Bosnia called him up, cap-tied him, and congrats to Kulenovic. It's a good opportunity. Hopefully, he can go play for a World Cup. That's what you always hope for, especially at home. How cool would it be if Bosnia gets drawn into a group where he gets to play at Canada, right? It's kid who grew up in Canada, went to BMO Field to support TFC. I think it would be a real cool moment if he gets to play a game at BMO Field. But yeah, now we'll see if Promise David can score his way above a Bear and Oluwaseyi for the next window.
Yeah, it's tough when it comes to losing dual nationals, and Klenovich and Farsi I know stung a little bit, but no matter what, I do wish the best for those guys. Farsi has, a lot of people didn't think that it was a great move to walk away from Canada and go to Algeria, and thought minutes would be hard to come by, and that maybe he, just because he was in MLS, it wasn't, maybe the quite the level that could just immediately get him into a team like that, especially with some other talent that they have. But he's already had, I don't know, roughly 5 or so caps. I think he's had an assist or 2. Like he's hitting the ground running there. And Klenovich, they got run over by Germany unfortunately this past window, but there's still a chance that they could, he could compete at a World Cup at home, like Alex mentioned. And for Ika Ugbo, I really like him. I'd like to see him find that form again. There have been issues with him and being able to kind of, keep a club, keep form. Whether his attitudes is right or not, I can't really speak to that. I know that just rejecting a Copa America call-up isn't always the best look, but at the end of the day, if he's scoring goals and he gets in the form he was in late last year, I think every Canadian would, including Jesse Marsh, would welcome him back, because he can be a difference maker and he's a pure 9. And there was a time when we were talking about starting strikers and we had Ugbo in there, Alex. And fortunately, he's a little bit out, but if I'll back him, and I'll say, if he can find that type of form again, he's definitely one to keep an eye on. But until then, I think that it's going to be a bit before we see him. He needs to start scoring. That's just it. And last one, we'll do 3 rapid fire ones, because I saw this comment a couple times before we wrap.
There's some good ones here, so we'll send in. We gotta go through them. So if you got any more, send them in now, so we see them before we.
But Justin Smith, a player that we kind of thought we were going to forget about, but he got his debut for Espanyol, which I thought was just incredible. I was very surprised to see
Barcelona too, of all teams, like in the derby.
I can't watch Espanyol B play. I believe they're in the 5th tier, 5th or 4th tier of Spanish football. So he is away from Canadians even being able to really view him, but he must be doing a job there to be able to get called in. Do you think that there is a redemption story here on Justin Smith being able to, fight his way into his Espanyol team, or maybe earn himself a loan move in January because he's playing so good in the B team? And do you think that he's a player that Canada, we thought we'd forget about, but maybe he can find his way to get back on the radar?
Yeah, I think you absolutely keep an eye, because for him, he's still young. I think that's important to forget with a lot of players, right? Like Justin Smith, maybe we're just so used to seeing him, but he's 21. Like he's a 2003 born. He just he's say like 3 years younger than a Moise Bombito, right? Like he's 3 years younger than a Tani Oluwaseyi. So for him, it's just been all about finding consistency, finding minutes, finding an opportunity. Just never really came with Nice on his loans. They were the lower levels, but then, maybe sometimes struggled to get minutes on some of them. But now if he can turn this Espanyol opportunity into regular minutes with Espanyol, you have to call him, because potential's always been there. You saw it for the U20s. He's flexible, can play center back, midfield, can ping a ball quite nicely, has some intriguing attributes in possession. Physically, he's got some, he's got the size certainly to play the pro game. Just hopefully he can get some minutes, because we talk about that midfield depth. I think having a player like that added into the mix, boom, you take that. And
sometimes it takes a little longer for things to click for a player. Like it's not impossible to think that he's impressing so much at the B team that Espanyol keeps him and then keeps him on the roster. He's got it's a lot of work to do, but the fact that he got his debut against Barcelona is a good indicator that whatever he's doing with this B team is catching attention. And maybe it's with Espanyol, but if not, maybe it's a loan move. I know loan moves have been a bit of a struggle for him, but it does seem like he's healthy and he's playing well. So I would say one to keep an eye on. One I would say not to really keep an eye on, unfortunately, Alex. Maybe you'll disagree. You're very high on Theo Corbeanu. I really like him as well as a player, but he's shown absolutely nothing to make Canadians excited. That's just the cold hard truth. He got that move to La Liga. He joined a relegation team that almost looks certain to go down. They have. He barely played there. He scored a beautiful goal right off the bat, but he hasn't been able to get in the team. Now they're in the 2nd division. He's still far from getting in the team. There's a lot of players that are doing it out wide for Canada, and I don't know what it's going to take for Corbeanu. He has to start. He has to play well. I don't think that he's going to be getting a ton of attention in the 2nd division, especially if he's not playing. So it's either for him, he needs to find a way to play in the SEC division and contribute to get a look, or maybe it's time for another move. But this is a player who's been on loan, I think 5 consecutive years and maybe 6 clubs or so. Like, this is what I was excited when he joined Granada, because he was going to get that permanent move, but it just hasn't really worked for him.
Yeah, I think for Corbianu, it's just minutes, it's consistency. It's the same with Jebbison. It's the same with the others. I think what we've come to realize is, he's got some work to do, in the sense that, like, you got to go win a spot. What we said about the La Liga move is, it's cool to be in La Liga. Let's be real. Granada felt like they were going down like since January of last year, so it was always inevitable. But then that was the thing. If, okay, you're joining Granada, have fun in the Liga while you can, and then, like, go dominate the second tier. And the reality is, he hasn't dominated the second tier. I don't know if he's scored in the second tier this year. He's got 9 matches, no goals, no assists, 3 yellow cards. Basically, if you're going to be in the second tier, especially, you got to dominate to even be put on the Canadian radar. And he hasn't, so it's up to him to go find that. I'm curious to see how he responds to this, because, I mean, there's still a chance he finishes the year strong, and maybe we're having a different discussion. Maybe Granada get promoted, and all of a sudden, Corbianu's in the top tier. Maybe he's going to play minutes. But right now, he just needs to get that regular opportunity. And I'm curious to see what happens when he's 22. He's at a bit of an interesting position where, he's jumped around Europe a lot. You do wonder if, maybe an MLS team will come calling and say, hey, we'll give you a chance to find yourself. So yeah, we'll see. Granada are currently 4th, tied or they're 1 point behind 2nd. So promotion is not out of the possibility. I would just look for a lot for him in that second half to even get back on the radar.
You took the words right out of my mouth, Alex. And it's funny when you do that, and I was going to use that exact same point, and I'll add to it just a little bit. I mean, he went from the TFC Academy over to the Wolverhampton Wanderers at a young age. He went on loan 5 different times. He was in Germany. He was in different levels within England. He was in Switzerland. He then lands a permanent move to Spain. He's not really playing. He's 22. If you look at players that are starting and are in the Canadian national team, they're players thriving in Major League Soccer. You have Schafferberg, you have Ahmed, you have Buchanan, who's there. I mean, I know he's not MLS, but he was an MLS player that found success when he broke out. When Hoylett went to the Vancouver Whitecaps, he was playing. It's maybe not the worst idea in the world for maybe a Canadian team, maybe a Portland. I don't know, someone to take a bet on Corbian to bring him back. But yeah, right now, I don't know if Europe's the answer for him. Moving on quickly, Borjan can he ever make a comeback? I'm going to say no. I will recommend you guys to keep an eye on him, though, because he is doing some fascinating things in Saudi Arabia, getting peppered with goals. Is a very top-heavy league. He's playing extremely well, but at 37, I think his time with the men's national team is over. And especially when you have 2 keepers like Dane St. Clair and Maxime Crepeau, I feel very comfortable with that. But Alex and I, we talk about Borjan every now and then. I think it's fun to watch him, because I just think his story is so fascinating.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe he'll get a testimonial or something down the road, or some sort of celebration for his service. But yeah, I don't think we'll be seeing him anytime soon. But it's good to see him killing it and getting that bag out in out in the Middle East. All
right, final 2 questions. One will be on Luca Koleosho. Chances on Koleosho, or is he joining Italy or the US? I've been pretty consistent. I would say in order, I do believe Canada is 2nd, but I think it's far behind Italy. I think Italy will get him sooner rather than later. And then I'd say Canada's 2nd, US is 3rd, but Canada and US are pretty close. I just think that Italy will give him a chance, and I think that he will go for it. Especially, he's made it clear that he wants Italy, and Italy's a massive nation.
Yeah, I mean, I think Italy has the edge on him, and I think the only thing you can keep an eye on from the Canadian perspective is that Koleosho's look at Canada came under Herdman, not Marsh, right? So he has seen a generational shift, and one can argue he came in at a pretty low moment for Canada, right, during June of 2022 and all the chaos. And then he came in that September window. But there were some talks at the time that he's always been someone that admired Davies a lot, admired the group. So who knows? Who knows how he'd react if Marsh called him? But for Koleosho, I'd agree. I think Italy has the clear edge. But you do feel like if you're Canada, they're going to make one last pitch before Kolyosha makes that decision, which you have to imagine is sometime next year, right? Because like if you want to start thinking about 26, start thinking long term, maybe Burnley go up next year, and he's really going to want that all sorted. I'm curious to see how Marsh's pitch goes, because maybe there is a reality where, look, if Kolyosha come in, there's a very strong chance of him, being a starter in 2026. Whereas with Italy, there's certainly chances of him doing that, but you never know. It feels like the generation could quickly shift in Italy. Some hot youngsters could come up, and then it could all of a sudden be a very different mix.
Yeah, and it's not guaranteed. And I know I'm not overly positive about it, but I mean, Klinovic is a nice example there. If Kolyosha sees a World Cup coming up and is not given the opportunity by Italy, you have two nations to choose from that are co-hosting that World Cup. So, maybe there is an opportunity for him to change his mind. He's human. His emotions can change as the situation changes. He may see that there's, or he has good talks with the coach. We don't really know, but I don't want to get Canadians too excited, because I know he is a very intriguing dual national, but at the end of the day, I do think he's a little closer right now to Italy, and we'll have to wait and see. Final question of the day will go to Jaden Nelson. Kilo says, I liked what Jaden Nelson looked like at Gold Cup. I'd love for him to somehow find his way back into the Canadian national team. He's playing in the second division in Germany right now. I kind of like that move for him, but he is hardly playing. They're sitting in a relegation zone. I think I'd honestly put Nelson into a situation similar to Corbiano, where, he did some good things at TFC. He went over to Europe. It's not quite worked out. Minutes are hard to get by. Minutes are hard to come by. I've had a tricky time speaking today, and he hasn't really been able to get any goal contributions. Maybe it's an opportunity for an MLS team to bring him back and try to get some form going. I don't know if you agree, Alex, or if you'd maybe like to see him stay in Europe a little longer, try his hand. I mean, he's only went out on loan one time, where Corbiano's had 5. So, but I think he's 22 now, Jaden Nelson. Is that right? 22, 21?
Yeah, I still remember when he was like 17, 18,
balling
out at TFC. Yeah, he's 22, just turned 22 this year. So, yeah, same thing. Just go get those minutes. Go see. It's nice that he's on loan, that if this just doesn't work out, he can always go back to Rosenborg and get a fresh start, be it with them or on another loan or something else. But it's the thing with the young Canadians. We always say it's important to just get minutes, and that's something that you can't discount in MLS, right? Is that when guys are getting minutes, it's at a good level, it can help them push. And that's sometimes the tough thing about making that move at 18, 19, that if you're not ready, you can end up in these situations. So it just shows the value of playing and playing regularly.
And that brings us to an end. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the live stream. Big shout out to tonybet for sponsoring it. And if you guys could be so kind, be sure to drop a like on your way out. Drop a sub if you're new around here, and we'll see you guys soon. Thanks for watching. Cheers, friends.